I'm really worried about the alarming gap between the rich and the poor. This disparity is reaching dangerous levels. The middle class, which used to be more stable, is slowly becoming poorer. This is happening because our education system doesn't teach us anything about money. If we think about what we learn in school about finances, the answer is clear: absolutely nothing. They don't teach us how to manage our money at all. So, what can we do about it? Waiting for our own certain future. I've never liked school. I know education has its value, but does it really prepare us for real life? What does school teach us about money? Basically, it just pushes us to get a job or become professionals like lawyers and doctors. But my mentor, Rich Dad, always said the secret is to become a business owner, an entrepreneur, like Elon Musk or Steve Jobs. Take Apple, for example. It's still one of the most valuable companies on the planet. Another crucial aspect that doesn't get talked about much is investment. Some people think that investing in certain businesses is illegal, but that's not true. It all depends on the level of access you have to the right information. A lot of people don't know this and end up putting their money into mutual funds, retirement plans, and ETFs, which I personally think are pretty bad financial choices. Some financial experts like Tony Robbins and Dave Ramsey advocate for avoiding any kind of debt altogether. I don't share that view. If that philosophy makes sense to you, that's fine, but I see things differently. What really bothers me is the ongoing increase in inequality. While the rich keep getting richer, the poor are becoming even poorer, and this trend just seems to be getting worse. It's a huge risk for the future of society. How many times have you heard the phrase, live below your means? Well, that's one of the biggest lies ever told. Who in their right mind wants to live like that? With restrictions, who would want to give up comfort and experiences that make life more enjoyable? Do you really think poor people go to McDonald's because they see it as a fancy dinner? Of course not. They do it because, unfortunately, they have no other choice. It's not a choice. It's a limitation imposed by their financial reality. The truth is, if you really want to get rich, living a life based on scarcity isn't the way to go. The idea of saving to the extreme and giving up what you want isn't the answer. Living modestly is a big misconception when it comes to building wealth. While looking into why schools don't teach financial education, I stumbled upon something fascinating. This neglect in teaching about money goes back to one of the most influential families in financial history, the Rockefellers. They really understood how to create wealth, especially in the oil sector. I learned a lot from them since I worked directly in oil transportation, and I can tell you, their perspective on money is eye-opening. Being frugal has nothing to do with prosperity. They knew that to build wealth, you need to have assets, multiple income streams, and use your money strategically. The truth that hardly anyone talks about is that living below your means won't make you rich. On the contrary, adopting a life full of restrictions and sacrifices will just lead to frustration and often dissatisfaction. For example, eating fast food regularly won't make you financially prosperous, but it might. Of course, this can lead to health issues. The most worrying thing is that a lot of people think giving up small pleasures will ensure a safe financial future. However, the real secret is understanding assets, liabilities, income, and expenses. These are the essential concepts that should be taught in school so that future generations can make smarter decisions about money. Personally, I always focused on increasing my assets and reducing my liabilities. I don't deprive myself of anything. In fact, it's my assets that financing my liabilities is the real path to financial prosperity without having to give up what you want. The big issue many people don't get is that by accumulating assets, you let them make money for you, creating a sustainable cycle of wealth without having to live with limitations. This brings us to a fundamental question: how do you use your money and where do you choose to invest it? Recently, I talked with my team about buying my latest car, a Shelby GT500. To many, it might seem like an expensive vehicle, but believe me, it's not. I know what a truly expensive car is. I've got Ferraris and Rolls-Royces in my garage. But the point here isn't the price, it's about the impact and purpose these purchases have in my life. Maybe you're thinking, do I really need a Shelby GT500? Isn't that just a whim? The answer is no, I don't need it. But I can afford it. I can because my assets, the ones I've acquired that keep generating income, are what fund these choices. Once you start thinking like this, real financial freedom becomes possible. A lot of people see luxury goods as symbols of a flashy, superficial lifestyle, but to me, they're assets. The difference is that while some people spend their money on things that drain their income without giving anything back, I invest in stuff that buys those luxuries for me. The secret isn't about cutting out everything you love and living in fear of the future, it's about something else. Knowing how to use money to work for you is key if you want to get rich and change your financial situation. The solution isn't about giving up everything or living on a tight budget. It's all about learning to build assets, develop income streams, and, most importantly, making your money work for you. That's what brings freedom, not a life full of restrictions and sacrifices. Over time, you'll realize that true wealth isn't about scarcity. It's about creating opportunities for yourself. What they never taught us in school, but you can understand now, is that the difference between the rich and those struggling to pay their bills isn't about how much they save, but how they invest and grow their money. The idea of living below your means is an illusion that many buy into. True financial independence comes from taking control of your assets and using them to increase your wealth. So, if you want to succeed, you need to change your mindset and stop just focusing on cutting expenses. Focus on cutting expenses and boosting your assets and income. Understand the real value of money and use it wisely to create more wealth and freedom for you and your family. This is the key to ensuring a prosperous financial future. The idea of liabilities is simple: if something takes money out of your pocket, it's a liability. On the flip side, assets do the opposite, they put money in your pocket. Even though it might seem complicated at first, the concept is pretty straightforward and easy to grasp. Even for a teacher, a college student who thinks they're really smart should totally get this principle without any hassle. I remember the moment I decided to buy a Ferrari, an amazing car that at the time cost around $200,000. I've had 4 of them. But instead of just blowing my cash, I looked for an asset that could pay for it. That's the kind of mindset that makes a difference. The goal is to grasp this as soon as you can, whether you're young or an adult, because an asset puts money in your pocket, no matter what. Whether you're working or not, my friend Kenny and I, for instance, own some rental properties. When I decided to buy the Ferrari, I called him up and said, "Kenny, I need like 500 grand to pay for my Ferrari." We made a deal, I acquired an asset, and that asset paid for the car, simple as that. The coolest part? You don't need a medical degree or an MBA to get this concept. There's a board game called Cash Flow. It's an amazing tool to train your mind and learn to think like one. This game is a real lesson in capitalism, showing you practically the difference between assets and liabilities and how to apply that in your daily life. The issue is that a lot of academics see the world with a narrow mindset influenced by Marxist ideas. They're smart people, no doubt, but they often miss the bigger picture of how money really works. Entrepreneurs like Carroll Shelby, the guy who built cars for Ford to compete with Ferrari, are perfect examples of that entrepreneurial vision. You can challenge the status quo and completely change the game. When Shelby said that Ford could outdo Ferrari. Sure, I felt uneasy at the time, but I couldn't help but admire the boldness and smarts behind that vision. The secret to getting rich is simple: let your assets cover your liabilities. A lot of middle and lower income folks think that living below your means, driving old cars, and making sacrifices is the key to success. They think they're making the right choice by avoiding debts for financial success, but honestly, that strategy doesn't work. What they really need to learn isn't to deprive themselves of everything but to find assets that generate enough income to cover their expenses and achieve real financial freedom. That mindset can completely change anyone's life. My ex-wife always used to say, "Just buy an asset." That phrase stuck with me and pushed me to look for new opportunities. Now, understanding how assets can fund your lifestyle is a game changer. In the next part, I'll show you how I applied these principles, from buying cars to building wealth through simple but powerful strategies. You don't want to miss it. Make sure you click on part 2 showing right now.